Okay, it looks like recording has started.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. It is so hard to believe that it is May. This has been a doozy of a year. Nonetheless, we have survived, and we will continue to survive. It's been very challenging and frustrating. So I definitely applaud you guys for going the distance and staying optimistic about this process as we transition systems. Transitioning of systems are never easy. They always come with a degree of challenges, and we certainly met those. So kudos to you guys for going the distance. Welcome to our May monthly meeting call. We're going to get started because we do have some guest presenters with us today. Um, and I do want to apologize for the mishap on the multiple emails that went out this morning with the presentation. It's just May and it's Thursday, so my apologies for that. So we're going to talk a little bit, nothing new from the Ed Plan side of things, but just a couple of reminders since we are approaching the end of the year with about 4 or 5 reports for the balance of this year. Just some things that I want to remind you of. We're going to talk. Very briefly about 7, 11, and 12, indicators 8 and 14, and just to give you a status update on the discipline report, table 5, a little bit about exiting table 4, and then the bulk of this meeting is going to be centered around the profiles and determinations. As always, our reminders and contact information. Okay. Um, as I stated earlier, nothing really new on the Ed Plan SC update sides. There is some updates in the works that should be available at the top of June, but definitely before the final submission. So as we prepare for the end of the year, we just ask that you do not alter the spreadsheets. We need them to be in the original download order, just to help us prepare things as we consolidate those individual downloads into one working document. For those of you who still have students pending in your system that may have exited last year, that's lingering in your database, please be sure to remove them. Um, and you want to if it's a student that graduated in the 2024 school year, you want to make sure that you use a date that's prior to July 1st of 2024. The students that will be included in this year's Table 4 exiting report will be those students who exited July 1st of 24 through June 30th of 2025. Um, as it pertains to the grade levels, I just want to remind you that when you run your report, if you see in the grade level that there's an XG or adult ed or AE or PO, P2, P3, OS, UG, NG, or a blank, those are invalid grade levels. And I know that the folks at EdPlan SC were working on an update so that the grade level will display as of the date you're running the report versus as of the child count date. So that was a glitch so some of you have made corrections within the system, and it was showing the date reflective of the child count date versus the current system date. So EdPlan folks, EdPlan SC folks or PCG folks are working on that corrections to give you the grade level as of the date you're running the report versus the date of the child count. But nonetheless, if you run your report and you see these grades in there or these letters in there, those are not valid grades and will need to be corrected before you upload anything to the state. Okay. Um, Once we did want to just have open dialogue about the systemic verification checks for 7 and 12. Once we got the report from the districts that submitted, because the system allows you to check what's included on the report, there was no consistency across the state with the Ed Plan districts. I want to be clear about that. For the Ed Plan districts, it was just too many missing gaps with the data that we needed to do the systemic verification check. So the process really, we could not move forward with Fidelity for the Ed Plan districts for those of you who submitted for the systemic verification checks. We just had too many missing information. We are working with PCG to restructure the report so that it would succinct more or look more in line with what you're current accustomed to seeing from the previous vendor. So we're working on some advanced reporting reports for you to be able to run and submit your final report that would provide that consistency across the state. Um, for the indicators 8 and 14 parent surveys, I just want to remind you that we are working with the SCDE order team, the Office of Research and Data Analysis team, to extract this report from the ODS system, from the EdFi ODS system. And what you see highlighted in yellow, all that information essentially comes from the PowerSchool side of things, while the age as a child count, primary disability, LRE, those information are actually merged into the data from the Ed Plan system. So indicator 14, we were finally able to get the data and put it in a functional order that would make sense to those opt-in districts. That was placed in ADT on Friday, May 16th. When you received your report, there was data in the first column, in the add remove column, that kind of gave some insight to why we were removing those rows from your report. And that and it consisted of a non-ed plan districts for those districts who are still using Enrich. We took that data out of the report to add your data back into the report from the Enrich system. If there were blanks and just no data, we removed that from the system. We had a couple of students in there that was not connected to a district, so everything came over blank on those students, and so we took them out of the report. Um, they gave us the whole gamut of data on the students. So if the students were not between the ages of 14 through 21, we removed them from the report. Of course, if they were deceased, we removed them from the report. And so if their age is outside of, if it's not between 14 to 21, they were removed from the report based on their age. So one of the things we had to do was look at the students who were reported on the Table 4 report from the previous year, because our Table 4 exiting report of 24, June of 24, essentially is the Indicator 14 report. So if you had students in the system that came over from the ODS system that was not on your Table 4 report, I made notations of that as well. Of course, any students with an exit reason of moved or not eligible, transferred to regular ed, revocation of consent, and move known to be continuing. We definitely do not, if they're still continuing, they're technically not exited. They're just exited from your district, but receiving services elsewhere. And for indicator 14, they had to have been a special education student at the time of exit. So if there's a revocation of consent or transferred or not eligible, those students are technically gen ed and should be excluded. So on your report, I know right now, the blanks are the students that you should be looking at, but I'm going to ask you to put the filter on the blanks and then go over to the exit reason column and deselect everything outside of, I think I have a slide in here that's going to tell us about that. So you want to deselect everything and leave basically your graduated with a high school diploma, your reach maximum age, received certificate, and dropouts. Those are the 4 categories that you are going to focus in on calling if you're an opt-in district. I have removed all of those exit reasons from my master report here. I just don't want you to contact students that you don't have to. I don't want to create extra work for you, if you will. If you are adding students to your report that for some apparent reason did not make it onto your final report, let me know those students' son's ID number. Of course, I'm going to need all the information in that spreadsheet on those students, but I will need to assign a survey code for those students. So send me that information or place it in ADT and let me know so that I can go pick it up and assign the son's ID number and get that back to you. You definitely want to keep track of your students. If for those, once you are making contact with them and completing the survey, you want to check them off of your list, whatever system you come up with, but it's up to you to track your students if you're an opt-in district. I did want to highlight what those exclusion reasons are, basically, which is no answer 3 attempts if the student is deceased or they do not want to participate in the survey. Your no answer 3 attempts for those opt-in districts at the end or the conclusion of the survey, which is July 31st, I believe. The survey closes for the opt-in district. I am going to put those students back in to the report and send it to the vendor. So they will that will still count towards your response rate if they are able to contact those students on the list. So I just want to let you know that. I did provide the survey links. If you click on the word English or the word Spanish, it will take you directly to the survey. That's one of the reasons why I wanted you to have the PowerPoint so that you could click on those links and take you directly to the survey if you're contacting those students. Um, my dates are off. It should be, the survey will be open until July 31st for the opt-in districts. It says September 1st, but really it's August 1st. We're going to send that information over to the vendors so that they can start contacting those students for us. Once again, we do want to make sure that you are using the survey code that is highlighted in your spreadsheet. Do not use the student ID or the son's ID number as the survey codes. Your survey codes consist of 4 alpha and 4 numeric characters for a total of 8 characters. So anything outside of that is going to pose a problem when we're trying to validate the responses. And certainly, if the survey codes are not accurate, we don't know which district to connect it to, if you will. So we definitely want to make sure that you're using the right codes. We're going to try to get the postcards mailed out next week. We're in the process of submitting that information to the print shop to create those postcards and mail out for us. Once again, if you do not want us to mail out your postcards, send us that email so that we could remove you from that list. Otherwise, your efforts may be duplicated. We will send updates every Monday so that you'll have a working list to know those parents that are or those students that are completing the survey from the postcards that we mail out. Okay. I do want you to be aware of the formula for the bonus points, and in order for you to get that one additional point for indicator 14, you have to have a response rate of at least greater than or equal to 50%. And so that formula is going to look like the total number of not applicable, which essentially are the total number of students that you surveyed divided by the total number of students in your source file. So all those blanks in column A, that's going to give you your total number that's in your file. That's going to be key for your response rate. So we want to make sure that we're on the same page with the total number in your source file. Okay. Indicator 8, we should have this completed by June 2nd. We're going to send an email blast. We're going to send emails to the parents who have a valid email address in the in the data file as our first line of defense, and then we're going to send out postcards to the remaining families. Of course, they will have until October 31st to complete this survey for the 24-25 year. I know it's going to run into next school year, but because of where we are, I feel like that's the legitimate time frame to give parents an opportunity to complete the survey. For those reporting districts, what you can do is just maybe do a news blast or some sort of flyer, just letting the parents know that there is a survey coming out. It is not a scam, and that we really, really want their input. At the conclusion of the survey, we will provide these reporting districts. These are the only districts that have to worry about reporting for this year, and that's Abbeville, Aiken, Anderson 3, Anderson 4, Calhoun County, Chester, Florence 3, Greenville, Greenwood 51, Horry County, Jasper, McCormick, Newberry, Richland 1, South Carolina Governor's School of the Arts and Humanities, and Williamsburg. Those are our Indicator 8 reporting districts for the 24-25 reporting year. So if you are not listed, then you don't have to worry about Indicator 8 for the 24-25 reporting year. Okay. The discipline report, we had hoped that we would have been able to provide you with a quarterly report. They have changed the way that we get that information in connection with the Office of Research and Data Analysis here at the State Department. And we are missing the duration from our report. However, I know that Aveen is producing daily reports from May 8th to June 16th. Those validation reports are posted in ADT. Please review those reports and make the necessary corrections. The duration codes that we are missing will come from your corrections or incorrections if you do not make those corrections. So those reports are posted daily at 9 a.m. and all corrections must be made by 9 a.m. on June 16th in PowerSchool. Once that date passes, you will not be able to make corrections and your data will be what your data is. Talk with your PowerSchool person because those certifications are due June 25th, and someone in your district is certifying to Aveen that your data is accurate, right? And so if there are um, instances of suspensions or pending expulsions that have not been corrected, those will sad to say, but those corrections it will be counted in your data. So we just want you to know in advance. If you are still seeing issues or having issues with your data, please contact Aveen at discipline@ed.sc.gov or 803-734-3057. She most likely will speak with your incident management person. So before you call her, join forces with your incident management coordinator within your district and talk with them to see what's going on, if they have any insight as to why the issues are occurring within your district. Okay, that's it for table 5. I just deeply apologize because we'd hoped that we would have been able to provide you with those quarterly reports. Um, for table 4 exiting, remember those students must be enrolled on July 1st. The coverage period is July 1st through June 30th of 25. And you want to make sure that your students who graduated with a high school diploma and your students that received the South Carolina Employability Credential are coded correctly within your system. I do know that for the exiting report, you probably should check your system because right now, I believe the exit reasons are coming over from PowerSchool. We have talked with PCG and streamlined them as best we could, but students who are withdrawn to adult ed, you will need to log into your system and tell us if those students are actually dropped out or received their GED or graduated with a high school diploma. Once you go in and modify that exit reason, that is the exit reason that will appear on your final report. So you do need to do some legwork to make sure that the correct exit reason is coming over. Um, you also want to make sure that your district code, school code, the age, race, gender, your multilingual status, primary disability, and LRE, you want to make sure that those things are not blank. It's not supposed to be blank, but I have seen instances where this information is missing from the student's information. So just double check. As always, if you are running into an issue or a problem, you want to make sure that you submit those tickets to Zendesk. Okay, and I do know that we have some questions in the chat. If my team, if you're able to answer those questions in the chat, please feel free. I want to make sure that we have enough time for our guest presenters to present before we get into asking questions. Your profiles and determinations, your final copies of your Excel version of your profiles and determinations are in ADT as of last week, Friday. And just a reminder that your data profile measures how the district compares to the annual performance report or the state performance plan when you hear us reference the APR or the SPP. That's what we are measuring for your data profiles and those 18 indicators, apologies. And states are required to make annual determinations. And so while you have your final copy in ADT, you can also see the final version. We changed how we publicize that on the website. So you will no longer see an Excel spreadsheet that you received in ADT. You will no longer see those on the website. We now have a dashboard for you to view the final profiles and determinations on the website, and you can click on the link in your document to be able to get to those dashboards on the website. Albert, if you can, if you could put that link in the chat for those who may want to access it right now. And there were lots of questions about the two versions of the profile, the determinations that was in ADT for you. Remember, there was one that was applicable to the 23-24 year. That is your determination for this year. That is your outcome for this year. We also wanted to provide you with a copy of your determinations that includes the proposal of the early childhood. You guys, we've been telling you for a while that the performance factor 7, the early childhood, was a gimme. And so starting next year, we're going to implement, change that so that the early childhood performance factors will be inclusive of the 6A LRE and the COAST data. And so for the LRE, we're looking at 6A. The target is that of the indicator 6, I believe. That information is identical. So if you meet the target, that's how you get your 1.5 points. If you didn't meet the target, but your data is better than the state data, you get 1 point. In the event that neither A or B is true, you get to C. You may not have been better than the state target, but you were not better than the state data, but you improved over last year and you get a 0.5 point. If there's no improvement over either year, either category, then you get 0 points. Similarly to the LRE, the performance factor, the indicator 7 data for COAST. We know that there are 6 outcome categories for COAST, and so you have to get at least 4. If 4 is the magic word. And so if you divide 4 by 6, that's how we came up with the 66.67% for the target. So if you have 4 or more categories, that is better than the target, then you get the 1.5. But if not, if you have 4 more categories, that's better than the state, you get 1 point. And if not, looking at the previous year, if you have 4 more categories that's better than the previous year, then you get a half a point. And if neither of those are true, then you get 0 points. Okay. So we just wanted to just kind of review that with you. We do have Skippy and Elizabeth Moore on the call with us today to talk more about what happens for the early childhood performance factor. So I'm going to turn it over, and if you would just cue me when you need me to change the slide, that would be great.
Thank you, Carolyn. Good morning, everybody. This is Elizabeth Moore. I am the team lead for review and analysis at the Office of Special Education Services. I am subbing in for Sherry Evans today, who is our 619 coordinator. She was not able to be here with us, but we still wanted to touch on our new early childhood performance factor. As Carolyn just explained, we're tweaking how we look at that a little bit, and we realize that is going to impact our districts a good bit. So this year, we have provided you with that information that is not actually affecting your determination. So it's not affecting the tier that you are placed in this year. However, it will take effect next year. And because of that, OSIS and Skippy would like to offer some supports for you to kind of begin addressing those areas of needs that have been identified based on that projected data. We want to give huge kudos and thanks to our data team for getting that data out ahead of schedule this year. So we've got plenty of time to look at not only that performance factor, but all of our performance factors. And along with that, Skippy and OSIS will be reaching out to a few districts. Excuse me, a few districts to offer some opportunity to work through what will be Skippy's Tier 3 needs intervention or intensive support process. That falls into our Tier 3 districts. Our needs intervention districts work through our district improvement process. Skippy will be new to that process, as well as our districts next year with this early childhood performance factor. So we wanted an opportunity to work through that on both sides so that next year, when it does take full effect, everybody is kind of aware of what that will look like and prepared for it. Next slide, Carolyn. All right. So one of the big supports that we have in place is our LMS COAST course. So there is a COAST course available in the OSIS Learning Management System. It incorporates the ECTA modules, information specific to South Carolina, and COAST completion, as well as our COAST knowledge check. So those of you who might complete that course will get 20 hours of professional development for certificate renewals. That's always a great selling feature for your staff. Each staff member who wishes to complete that course will need to have a profile in the OSIS LMS if they do not already. Many folks already have that profile set up from using it in the past, but if not, you can work through the steps to create a OSIS LMS profile. And just remember that sometimes that verification or confirmation email will go to your junk mail. We get questions about that a good bit, so always check your junk mail if you are trying to set up your profile. Once you've created a profile or you have your profile, you can search for that course just in the course directory. It is the ECTA DAISY Child Outcomes Summary course that it can be found just through courses in our LMS. Next slide. We also have some COAST course flyers. These are great for SPED directors or district level staff to share with your teachers and additional staff who may want to take that COAST course. It's a great course to incorporate into your PD calendars for next year. It's a good opportunity for those teachers to do it in a self-paced environment where they can still earn those renewal credits. So these courses can be, these flyers can be found at the QR code to kind of advertise that course. But if you need any help or assistance, you can reach out to Sherry Evans and she can also get those flyers to you directly. So again, that is one great support. Next slide, Carolyn. We also have Skippy with us, who has some other amazing supports available, and we're going to turn the mic over to them.
Thank you. So if you can go back to the slide right before. Thank you. So we know you guys have had quite a year, right? And you might be wondering why. Why is this performance factor being updated? Why now? Can you go to the next slide? So as I'm reading this this slide, I just kind of want y'all to think about how your district approaches LRE placement decisions. And this is from the Federal Register. It says, in all cases, placement decisions must be individually determined on the basis of each child's abilities and needs and each child's IEP, and not solely on factors such as category of disability, severity of disability, availability of special education and related services, configuration of the services delivery system, availability of space, or administrative convenience. So just kind of thinking about that in terms of the districts that we're in. Next slide, please. So this is our national data, and we chose 2022, 2023 to look at today, just because we have the readily available data for that. So this graph was created by ECTA, or our Early Childhood Technical Assistance Center. And if you look at 2023, you can see that the national average for children attending a regular early childhood program and receiving the majority of their special education services within that program is 42%. We also see that 30% of children do not attend regular early childhood programs, receive their special education services in a separate class, separate school, or residential facility. So how does South Carolina compare? You go to the next slide, please. Carrie?
Sure, I'll just jump in. And again, this data is a little bit older than what we currently have, but since it was readily available, that's what we wanted to talk about in comparison with the national data. So if you look, you see we have data points for 6A, 6B, and 6C. And you'll see that we are not meeting our targets for 6A, which is being included in a general early childhood setting and receiving those services there. And we are about 32% for that. And we're about 30, maybe 33% for receiving services in a separate location. My question to everyone is, what do you notice here and what questions do you have?
Currently, participants are muted. They can't unmute themselves until the end, so.
Can they, well, you could use the chat, right? So if you have
Yes.
any thoughts in the chat, feel free to put it, but I know we are kind of on a time limitation. So something that I was thinking about is, well, if I'm adding up these numbers that I see in the column for fiscal year 2022 data, then there's a chunk of children missing from this, right? So we know if we're using the LRE decision tree that this doesn't just show us all of the information. So what this is not capturing are the children that are indeed in a general education program, but they receive their special education services in another location. So we're missing a chunk of about 34% of children. And that's something that we can definitely support districts in thinking about. How can we encourage those services to be push-in services so that children can stay in their general education setting, they can receive their supports there in the context of where they're learning, and it's much easier for them to then generalize the skills. That's something that definitely stood out to me that we wanted to highlight. The other thing that stood out is that we are, with this data, about 10% below the national average, and I know that we can do a lot better. I know that everyone on this call and all of the folks that we work with really understand and have a desire to support our littlest learners in their least restrictive environment, and also understand the trajectory that this creates for children across their educational career. And it's sometimes odd to think about 3- and 4-year-olds graduating high school, but this does impact our post-secondary outcomes and graduation rates. Next slide, please.
Thanks, Carrie. Yes, so like she had mentioned, we are about 10% below the national average, but this is looking at, this slide here is looking at South Carolina and the individual districts within the state. So yes, we have 32% as a whole, right? But if you're looking at this, that is the average. So you're looking essentially at the middle, and we have many outliers. So some of the districts in our state that are really struggling with LRE are being bolstered by those that are doing well. And so this is why we wanted to make sure that we are meeting the needs of our littles and that we're providing the best start that we can. So this is why the performance factors were put into place. This is why they're set up the way that they are. And this is why Skippy is here to help. So how do we move that needle? Next slide, please. Well, the secret to getting ahead is to get started, right? So we have some opportunities that we want to share with you all, and we are always here if you want to reach out and ask any questions. We're here to support you. Next slide, please. All right, if you want to learn more about the performance factor and about data, we will be at Summer University on June 11th from 9 to 12. It's an entire 3-hour session where we're going to look closely at the indicators, delve into the data, and discuss strategies to improve your district's performance. You can register by using the QR code or clicking on the link. And I believe, Carrie, you put that in the chat. Thank you very much. Next slide, please. Additionally, we have our Connecting the Dots recorded webinar series. It includes an overview and then a deep dive into each of the 3 early childhood indicators and how districts can utilize the DEC recommended practices to meet those. Additionally, we know that data is only as good as its accuracy. I think we talked about that a little bit earlier in this session. And we wanted to approach that and make sure that everybody is getting full credit for the things that they are doing by correctly entering data. And so that will be coming soon. So if you would sign up for our newsletter, follow us on social media, you'll be able to see when that opportunity is released. And I'll give you that information here at the end of our presentation. Next slide, please. So if you're ready to get started, we have intensive supports available. These are some of the things that we offer. And we, as Liva mentioned, we will be working with several districts who want to be proactive in addressing some of the performance factor challenges. And we want to make sure that they have kind of a jump start to addressing that before the actual performance factor goes into place next school year. So you just reach out to us and we can connect and determine what will be best for your district. Next slide. We also have our Early Childhood Inclusion Conference. That is Thursday, September 25th at R2I2 in Columbia. And our theme will be Keys to Unlocking Potential. Some of our goals are to provide participants with strategies to embed specially designed instructional opportunities through early childhood continuum service delivery. We want to empower participants to employ data-informed decision-making to improve childhood outcomes. And we want to provide a platform for all participants to build a strong culture of inclusion and belonging for children with disabilities. And so we invite you to join us for that. We're also have a call for proposals open. If you'd like to present until May 30th, that's open, and early bird registration will open mid-June. Next slide. This is our information and how you can connect with us. If you want to sign up for a newsletter, you can use that QR code, and then you'll know about all the things that we have coming up and opportunities that we have available for you all. Carrie, anything you'd like to add?
Thanks, Melissa. I think you've got everything. I just put some links in the chat, and I just encourage folks, feel free to connect with us email, call, contact us. And I would echo what Melissa said about subscribing to our newsletter. We try not to spam everyone. We send out a quarterly newsletter and a few additional updates as they're needed, but that's really a good way to stay up to date with kind of what we have going on, what supports we have available, and other information related to supporting early childhood programs. And we are looking forward to working with you all. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you guys for that very informative information. I'm just going to give a couple of reminders and updates, and then we're going to turn to the chat for questions. Our next monthly meeting will be June 26th. We're putting it on the calendar if we need it. If we don't have any updates for you, then we will cancel closer to probably that Monday before, if we don't have anything to provide to the team for the group. Our monthly meetings are still the fourth Thursdays at 10 o'clock. Please feel free to share that information with anyone. Information is power, right? So anyone connected or have a vested interest in the data collection and reporting, invite them to attend. If nothing else, it would help build capacity within your district. So please feel free. Here's our contact information. As well as our point of contact for each of the report here at OSIS. And we're going to defer to the chat now, team. Any outstanding questions? Or if you want to, Albert, you can unmute the participants to ask questions. And I see Greg has some questions about how I guess you're referring to the COAST calculations for the proposed performance factor 8.
Okay, participants are able to unmute themselves and ask any questions.
Okay, so Greg, when we looked at it, we looked at the indicator 7 for the 23-24 year and the 24-25. Am I in the right years? We're in 24-25, so the previous 2 years, so 23-24 and 22-23. And you want to look at your indicator 7 data and see how many of those outcomes are greater than the target. And if it's not greater than the target, is it greater than the actual state data? In the resource locator that I provided to you, there is a historical target data sheet in there that tells you what the targets and the state data was for those reporting years. So you could actually look at your data to see how many of those 6 categories are better than the target or the state's data, or if not, is it better than the previous year? Is your 23-24 data better than your 22-23 data? And you have to surpass at least 4 of those categories. Because this is our first time doing it, the 23-24 data is our baseline data, which is the 66.67%. I hope that answers your question.
Now, Carolyn, can you hear me?
Yes.
So my question is, are the numbers coming from, like, is it a growth factor, like your entry data versus your exit data? Are the calculations coming from, like, say, for instance, you scored a 1 entry, and you scored a 7 on exit? Is that number figured into the calculation? Okay,
Yes.
so my question and my concern is, so that 1 to 7 is a 6-point difference.
Mm-hmm.
Many of these kids are coming in, especially speech-only kids, our TIC especially, are coming in at 6 and maybe even a 7 to begin with. When I talk to my therapist, some of those questions, those kids are already scoring high. So if they're getting more points from a 1 to 7 than from a 6 to a 7, that kind of everybody can you start to play the score now.
Right,
you can
right.
you can I'll just say, hey, we'll just enter everybody as a 1, which is not fair.
Well,
But if that's how the data is getting.
Right, but I don't think so. You're talking in reference to the rating scales, right? And
Yes.
so before we get there, Andrea, if you can, the formulas that we use for the outcomes for indicator 7. So there is a rubric that a methodology that is used, Greg, that looks at the ratings of the outcome and how those students are scored. And so it's not necessarily if they're scoring a 1 or 6 or what that outcome is, but it's how many are in each of the categories. that factors into that. So if you have concerns about how they're scoring or using that rating scales, we can connect you with Sherry, who is our early childhood liaison here in the office, to maybe provide some training to your staff about how they're using that rating scale based on the, I believe it's the decision tree, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I understand that part, but do you understand what I'm saying? Is that that's a concern though, if they're actually just looking at the growth rate and that's how they're scoring these,
Right.
then
And
it's
so
it's a numbers game. So
essentially,
why wouldn't somebody say, well, I'm just going to give this a kid a 1, knowing that they're going to exit at a higher number, 6,
right, but
7, and they're going to have
but
a higher growth rate.
I understand, but then that becomes a training piece, right? Because they should be rating the children based on that rating scale, not just because
But if you look at that rating scale, a lot of the speech only kids, when you answer those questions, those a lot of those kids are already 6 and 7s. So that's the concern. If you're looking at
Right.
speech only kids, they're already rated high on those skills going into it.
Okay, so I will connect you with Sherry. I will definitely give her your have her to connect with you. And I think there's a couple of others. So maybe we might need to have a session centered around the outcome scoring to talk a little bit more about that. To
And then,
address your
okay,
concerns.
that would be great. And then on
Okay.
the factor 7, the LRE, I'm trying to figure out where those numbers are actually coming from. Because I thought when she was going through the slides, it kind of made sense. Okay, because I'm looking at the state targets in the 35.28 from the proposed determinations. And I thought
Mhm.
that's where she was kind of alluding to, that if they're in the regular ed class and they're getting their services in the regular ed class, that's what they're looking at. But when
Correct.
she made it sound like when she responded to my question that it's based on all of the LREs.
It's based off of 6A, the students that are in regular early childhood program.
Yeah, and I answered that, Greg, in the chat. You may have missed that. And I also want to say, go back to your indicator 7 discussion, when you were asking about the ratings.
Yeah.
And I will put like the steps necessary to get to the outcome, because those ratings that you give place those kids in a category, and those categories are adjusted to the formula. So, but I'll share that out with you. And like Carolyn said, we'll also have Sherry get in contact with you.
Okay. And I just want to clarify. So on the factor 7 LRE,
Yes.
it's strictly looking at in the regular ed and getting
No, not
services
regular.
in the regular ed.
So,
No.
but wait a minute, hold on, Andrea, because I think there are two different things here. So
Okay.
for the performance factor for the proposed, we are looking at the LRE for early childhood inside a regular program, early childhood program, right?
And receiving services in that regular program.
Correct.
Not in a separate location.
Correct.
So that's
Only-
basically saying it's inclusion services. Because it's all given in the regular program, right? Am I
Yes, sir.
getting this wrong?
I'm not saying that you are, but it sounds like a bigger discussion than what we have right here. So I don't want to get bogged down. I'm taking some notes to be able to come back and provide you with the answers to your questions.
Okay, because I have a concern. If that's the only thing they're looking at, and it's services in the regular program and the special services are in the regular program, that's kind of pushing every district. You better have an inclusion program and you better have a higher rate in the inclusion program.
Okay, got it.
And Greg, that is early childhood. That's the early childhood setting.
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay, got it. Okay. All right, we still have about 10 more minutes.
Hey, Carolyn, it's Joan.
Hey,
I just have a quick question about 7 and 12 submission. I kind of missed a little bit of that part. But what I tell me if I heard this right, we may be submitting that through alternate means?
Yes, so how you collected the data previously for the systemic verification checks, we're changing that for the final submission. We're meeting with PCG probably 2 to 3 times a week with some intensive discussions on making sure that we're getting all of the data that's needed, and we don't have to worry about whether a particular box is checked or not, and that everybody is collecting the data the same way.
Okay.
The submission to the state will still be the same, where you will actually attach that spreadsheet and submit to us.
Okay, and when will we kind of know the final process?
We have a meeting scheduled with them. We were supposed to meet today, but it got postponed to tomorrow. So hopefully by next week, we should be able to provide you with some specific means of accessing the data and checking and doing all that good stuff before.
Okay, I just wanted to check because those two
Yeah,
were on my to-do list for the
I
next year.
know,
But
I
I'm
know.
gonna
It's
move
been
that
challenging.
my
I
to-do
know.
list and do
Yes,
something
ma'am.
else.
Yes,
Gotcha.
ma'am. Yes,
All right,
ma'am. I
thank
know
you.
it's been very challenging. I know it's been very challenging.
Hey, Carolyn, I just wanted to jump back on. And Greg, we're happy to connect with you, and we are happy, OSIS, if you would like for us to do a webinar or some other supports with Sherry around the early childhood least restrictive environments. And I just wanted to remind folks that, you know, the first placement decision option for any child should always be the general education setting. So this performance factor just helps us to look at that and to measure that and think about supports, because we know preschool is a little different, right? But we also know that IDEA and LRE does apply to our preschool students. And that's why we're happy to help kind of navigate some of these pieces that feel a little nuanced. So we're here to help.
So we have about 7 minutes left, and right now my to-do list is definitely more information about the COAST outcomes and the inclusion of the regular education program for the LRE for the performance factors, correct? Am I on target with that, Greg?
I'm sorry, Carolyn, could you repeat that?
Just more information about the inclusion of the other LREs in the regular program, the inclusion rate for the LRE that as it pertains to the performance factor, and more information about the COAST outcomes and just the rating scales information, correct?
Yes, I think both of these new ones,
Yes.
I think everybody is like kind of wanting some more information on this.
Okay, not a problem.
All right, thank you.
You are welcome. Is there any questions that's still outstanding in the chat? This is like really, really good discussion. And I know it's frustrating and alarming, but it definitely drives the conversation and how we move. So I definitely appreciate your insight. I think we're good. We all should have a high percentage of students.
I have a question for you. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
When running the indicator 7, COAST report in Ed Plan, I just kind of played around with it a little bit, and I noticed that a lot of the data is coming from last year into this year. Is that a reasoning, or is there a reason for that, or the system is not set correctly for this year?
I think we're still experiencing some residual, and so that's one of the reasons they're changing how the reports are ran into the system, to be able to get more accurate information. There are some instances where, because we had the transition period, the gray period, where there are some students that are lag or lingering that needs the exited information. They were technically reported as a part of last year, but they're still lingering in the system because we transitioned. So those just kind of need to be updated. So if you have students that are showing on your report that was a part of last year and they were reported, you just have to go in and do the exiting information. But that date has to be before July 1st of 2024 to get them off of your report if you're cleaning and have students that are still lingering from the previous year.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. I feel the anxiety coming through the computer monitor. Okay, so I just want you guys to know that we are in this with you. We just need to know what's happening and what you're experiencing as it pertains to cleaning your data and what issues you're running into, so that we can be of assistance to you. If we're not able to do anything, at least get you to the person who can help you get it squared away. We know that we're operating from a standpoint of, we're telling you what the system is supposed to do, but then you get to see what it's actually doing. And so to bridge that gap, we definitely need to increase the communication so that we are all on the same page, because what one district experienced, another district may not. Okay, well, if there are no additional questions, we thank you guys, and those of you who are preparing to wrap up the end of the school year this week, congratulations to you. Another successful year under your belts as we prepare to close out this year and get ready for next year. Have a good weekend and stay safe.